Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 197, and this is part three of our E3 spectacular or special, as we have it down here. I'm your host, TaoMaster99. Tonight, with me, I'll kind of go through this a little quick because we have a good bit of stuff to talk about. Not as bad as Sunday's episode, but we have some stuff to talk about. We have Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you?
I'm doing okay. Maybe it's the combination of a long week at work and a nonstop drip of game news, but I'm feeling pretty exhausted.
All right. A good E3 for you today or this week?
Not as I mean, it seems to really slow down. Like Saturday and Sunday were such a fire hose, and now we're just kind of getting bits and pieces. So it's nice to have the wrap up show to be able to kind of tie a bow on the rest of the conference.
And then, of course, we have Mr. Game Logic. Game, how are you tonight?
DBQ, did you say tie a bow or did you say tie bow? I was getting flashbacks of Billy
Oh,
Blanks in the
Billy
90s.
Blanks! Billy
Maybe
Blanks here.
both.
Hold on. Get you. Yeah, we're gonna tie bow here. Get some energy back. Everybody, get your feet moving. Okay, here we go. Count it out.
Yeah, the byline in the announcement was let's wrap this up and get back to playing games. Yeah, it's been a super busy time. Yeah, so without much further ado.
All right, let's get into it. We're gonna get a couple quick hits real fast here. First up, the band. I'm gonna start at the bottom here. Actually, the Bandai Namco conference, I guess we'll call it. There was only actually the one game that they showed up here, as far as we could tell. None of us actually watched it, but it was the Dark Pictures anthology, House of Ashes. And this is a survival horror adventure interactive game. So kind of, I think DB, you mentioned, I can't remember the title now. Totally blanking
Yeah,
on
so
it.
this is the Until Dawn developers,
Until Dawn.
and this is their third game in the Dark Pictures anthology. The first one, I played a little bit of the first one, really enjoyed it. I mean, it's in that same kind of vein of Until Dawn in terms of this interactive kind of graphical adventure story, kind of where there's multiple paths, multiple endings, and your decisions kind of branch off. And so it is. I mean, design wise, it's a pretty creative piece, and it's nice that they're continuing to be able to do this and kind of evolve their craft. The fact that it was the only thing shown seems kind of strange. I mean, it's nice for them to have it highlighted for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but I don't know if it really warrants. I mean, and then maybe that is just part of all of this, right? Like without having the things that would have been previously on a show floor that would have been kind of covered and you would have seen a trailer now have trickled out into these conference directs announcements types of way because it was the only way to get this information out there.
Yeah, I know there are other games, Scarlet Nexus. I believe that was shown previously in the week, which is the Xbox. I don't know if it's just timed exclusive. I can't remember, or if it's a total exclusive to the Xbox PC platform. But and then there's one other. I couldn't find the article now when I was trying to look while you were talking. But there's one other game I had saw in another article that they had released them, and I can't remember what it was. But yeah, they only had like a couple other games to show off. So yeah, kind of weird that they had like. I thought this was going to be a little bit bigger than kind of some of the other ones because the Bandai Namco is fairly large, fairly big company, and they produce a lot of stuff. But I guess they just kind of threw it out there. I don't know if that was more just because of their name. They wanted to have some stuff out there to show, but that's all they had. Up next, something that I think a lot of people thought was gonna be a lot more bigger and even actually have some game. Well, I mean, I guess they talked about games, but not the way you think. Take Two Interactive's conference or little direct Game Logic. Looks like you all of us were the only ones that watched it. Can you tell us about what happened here?
Yeah, so I watched a little bit of it. I didn't watch the whole thing. So Take Two's presentation was actually a panel discussion on diversity and inclusiveness and equality in the industry, and brought up a lot of the topics that have really been burgeoning, not only in gaming but in entertainment greater and around the country, particularly since last year in the very acutely burbling kind of side effect byproduct of the pandemic. So I thought, and it wasn't the only panel and discussion on diversity. There were several shows which invoked that topic during parts of their presentation. I think the word had already been out that they were not going to talk about Grand Theft Auto 6 beforehand. Um, and in general, I think the big problem that I had with the gaming community in this instance, and I had the same problem with them when Coach Media did their presentation, and so it's not a matter of I'm a minority, so I got angry that other people, gamers got angry about there being a panel discussion about minority issues. I got angry because the gaming community just embarrassed themselves this weekend for anything that was included in E3 that wasn't a game trailer. And I'm sorry, folks, but it's an industry. It's not just a bunch of sizzle reels for you to go not spend your money on the games that you claim that you love, right? Because our gaming community is one that claims that it loves games, but then finds all sorts of reasons to also concurrently say that they don't want to spend money on them. So it's just, I was already embarrassed and angry with the gaming community on Friday because I watched them on YouTube, so I could see all the comments below about everybody flipping, losing their minds because it wasn't a bunch of sizzle reels and it was a bunch of developer interviews. And again, newsflash: games that people play are made by other people, human beings, and they actually have, an ethos and a creative process and an intellect. And, unfortunately, when you only see this as a rule, you never understand the people behind it. And so it shouldn't be unacceptable for a company to choose that that's what it's going to present during its panel. So, granted, I get it. Maybe Rockstar didn't telegraph this sufficiently enough. Maybe Take-Two didn't telegraph it sufficiently enough. But again, if they had, would the gaming community have listened? Probably not. One thing presenting here, I don't know that I know how to do this. So,
Well, and they,
Oh.
as you pull that up, I think they did telegraph it. They were out the day before saying that this was a panel on
right.
diversity in game development and the industry. That they were pretty direct in terms of the fact that this was a panel. If this wasn't E3 where there were physical people here, this was in a hall somewhere with a panel. I think it your comment on whether or not people heard it is clear. It wasn't, and it is part of kind of an expectation because so much else was in that trailer, prepackaged, slick aspect, that when something came out that wasn't that, even if it was pre-warned or pre-announced, that still did not resonate, did not sink in, kind of bounced off because people's expectations were aligned with what else they've been seeing over the course of the last 5 days or so.
Yeah, and this article in particular, just for awareness and understanding how it relates to the conversation we're having, is that this article was posted up on GameSpot like 6 hours before the show went down, and it had been posted, on Take Two and I think Rockstar sites, probably in the area of where they have their media, their press stuff. I think like the day before. So and again, look, you guys know me. I'm very heavy-handed about expectations of the public, and if I felt like this was an instance to say, hey, they were well out ahead of this and they informed everybody well ahead of time, I would be further flogging and flailing the gaming community. So I get it. Like, people probably didn't know. But like you said, DBQ, and I said before, I don't know that would have made a difference. So but the point of my assessment is, in a week long, great Scott, like, we have not gotten a week's worth of creative news and awareness of the games that are coming down the pipeline for this year and into next year ever at this volume, definitely since 2019, right? So it's been 2 years, right? And for there to have been 10% of the time that was spent about inclusion and doing developer interviews, I think that's something that the gaming community should learn how to stomach.
Yeah, and I don't. Well, were you going to try to stream something, or you? I saw the thing come up.
No. I was just presenting the browser window.
Oh, okay.
for where they had put up the announcement. And
Oh, okay.
I just want to also give a shout out and say a thank you for Ravenclaw, one of my personal streaming mentors and champions, who has swung through the live stream to send us good spirits. So thank you very much, Ravenclaw. Thanks for swinging by.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Yeah. I mean, I think. See, I think they're even when before the digital stuff started happening, they're kind of switching over to the trying to get actual people into the conference. Excuse me. They had like a limited amount of tickets and stuff. So I think they're at that point they were trying to get over to a more customer friendly kind of a show, and maybe that kind of was kind of leading up to this too, where like people were kind of confused, like, hey, what's going on? Why are they doing this? But I mean, it's a conference, so like you said, I mean, even if you go to like a Comic Con and stuff, they always have all kinds of panels going on about different subjects and stuff. So I think people were just kind of confused, I guess. I don't know even how to say it, but
Well, I go back to, I don't disagree that people were confused. They've been confused for the last 20 or 30 years, right? This is always the problem with E3, is that as much as we like to think it, the show's not for us. The show is an
exactly.
industry show, and it's an opportunity for them to get in touch with the media, for them to meet with each other, to set up deals, close deals, right? There's a byproduct that's informing the public about the games, and I get it, it's virtual, so maybe people thought they were like, and I guess 2019 was the first year that they opened it to the public, and they were already moving towards like then trying to separate that. I think maybe it was a little separated where there were some press days, maybe the first day or two, and then the public, right? But the press had been asking for even greater separation because the public had been encroaching on what is on a space that had historically been the media's opportunity to interface with the industry. So again, I never made the assumption that E3 was gonna, just because it was virtual, was gonna be a marketing shtick for just to serve the general public.
Yeah, and no, yeah, and I wasn't trying to say anything like that either. I was just kind of bringing that up. So DB, were you gonna say something or?
No, I was just going to say, I think 2018 was the first time that they let people in, and then they let more in 19.
Okay, yeah, and I'm assuming that number was probably gonna just keep going up as the years went on. Let's see. Up next, Freedom Games. None of us actually saw this. I'm just gonna run off a few names here of the games that they've showed, and unfortunately, I didn't get to fill out the whole list. But we have Dreamscaper, which evidently, when I was reading this article, I guess it was shown like a year or two ago on one of Nintendo's indies. This is a roguelite game, kind of brawler, top-down shooter, dungeon crawler kind of a thing. Like every time you dream, you go into a dungeon. You got to clear out the monsters, which actually sounds pretty cool and actually looks pretty cool when I was looking up this game. We have Airborne Kingdom, kind of like a town city building simulator. When I guess you're on these airships up in the sky. That's coming out sometime this year on consoles.
Yeah, because it's out on PC already. It came out.
Okay. And also, I'm sorry, Dreamscaper is coming out of Steam Early Access on August 12th of this year. We have Coronon, which is a Pokemon-esque adventure. You just capture monsters and battle and stuff like that. So that's coming out on Switch and PC of Q1 of next year. Cat Cafe Manager coming out on PC Q1, 2022. To the Rescue, a shelter dog management simulator, which has come out to PC and Switch of Q4 2021. So these are all indie titles coming out of this conference. And like I said, there was only like a handful more. I didn't get a chance to list down here, but anything tickle anybody's fancy here? Coronon might sound kind of cool because this is kind of like a Pokemon like, and even the Dreamskipper one I think looks kind of cool too. That might check out sometime. So, Game Logic, Razer. What do we got here? What do we got coming out for Razer here?
All right, this is the first time
Devices?
I'm excited tonight. This is my new console announcement, basically, for
Oh.
2021 E3. No, I was a little excited. There were some things that went down here. First of all, I will mention that Min Liang Ten, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but the Master of Shade. So normally I don't go in for companies who throw shade at other people's products. I always talk about how Don't tell me how bad the other guy's thing is. Just tell me what yours, why yours is good. But threw a lot of shade in this conference. But he brought up some really pertinent points, and right, he talked about how gaming laptops in the last few years have been luggables, right? That they're not really laptops. That how Razer made, the first ultra portable kind of gaming machine. And it talked about talked about a lot of the things that they brought to the fore from a technology perspective that I had some respect for. Right? I don't look. I'm a big guy. It doesn't bother me to lug a 10-pound laptop through the airport with a 5-pound power supply. I've always been juxtaposed to other people, business travelers that I've traveled with, who've always like, oh man, I gotta travel light. I'm like, I need to bring however much power I need to bring, right? And if it's got to hurt my shoulder a little bit getting through the airport, then I just accept that. But I was really impressed. And so first of all, Razer's been making these gaming laptops. I guess they mentioned since 2011-ish, so for about 10 years. And I think their first machine was a Razer Blade 14, and they have brought that model back. Has been out of their lineup for some time. It is powered by an AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX, which is just an incredibly impressive piece of tech to not only put in a gaming laptop, but to put in something in a small form factor gaming laptop, where the norm is 15 inches. But to put it in a 14 is just really amazing. And then for it not to be a Ryzen 7, but to be a Zen 3 processor in the enthusiast line, right? So I mean, you go up from here, and the only thing higher in the AMD lineup is a Threadripper, and that's comparable to a Xeon class processor from Intel. Or I should say, an Intel Core, I think X was the version that they used to run with. So incredibly small, 8-core processor, 16 threads, super fast. The other thing that they mentioned for this processor, they have options where you can order it with a 3060, a 3070, or a 3080. It is a Max Q type, so this is the super power efficient variant of the NVIDIA processor, which I think sacrifices a little bit of top end oomph at the very top end in comparison to other GPUs in this realm. Comes with 144 and 165 hertz displays, which again I haven't been convinced that's really necessary on a laptop, but it's neat. What really impressed me is it's an HDMI 2.1 laptop. So if you are so it's HDMI. So in order to push the best frames, it needs to be 2.1 because it doesn't have a DisplayPort output. So again, this is just with the consoles requiring that type of connection, this is one of the rare instances where from a port connector technology perspective, I'm just ready for HDMI. Anything prior to HDMI 2.1 could just go away. Like I don't want to see anything built that's not HDMI 2.1. And amazingly enough, showing what I think is a good design choice. It has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. So as advanced as it is, they didn't follow the Apple path. 12-hour battery life. Prices on these are $1,800, $2,200, and $2,800. CPU configurations notwithstanding, let's just call that. Those are the ones that are stapled to the 30, 60, 70, and 80. So, again, I'm a PC enthusiast. I follow this market. I always ask, right, for people who are gamers, right, who, they may be creatives, they may be professionals, but they're part of their fabric cuts across the gaming space. I'm like, why would you ever buy a MacBook Pro when you could buy a Razer computer at for slightly less prices than a comparable Mac is, and it has a dedicated GPU. Like you're paying more than you'd pay for a Razer, and you're getting like an Intel Xe right processor. I'm like, I've never understood it. That being said, I've never plunked down for a Razer laptop. I've always been like, I'll just buy my $1,000 Acer and be happy because, again, I'm not super high travel anymore. What actually really impressed me out of this press conference, and it was only about 40 minutes, was they also introduced something called the Razer GAN charger, which at first I was like, it's a charger? Really? We're taking up press conference time for this? But I'm really amazed. This is, the size of kind of, I wish I had one. I don't have my USB power supplies over here, but it's very small in comparison to a laptop sized brick, which is easily, the size of, my hand and a half is typically what you have to lug along with a gaming laptop. This is about the size of a phone charger. It has 2 USB-A ports and 2 USB-C ports. It's a 130 watt charger. And the reason I'm actually considering grabbing one of these, this is the type of charger that, like, I don't know about you, but when I go on travel, I typically have multiple power supplies in my bag. right? I have a big travel battery, right, which I'm hoping can charge everything, but for when I'm in a hotel room or when I'm, when I'm stationary, I have all these multiple chargers. So when I lay over in the airport, I got to go through the bag, find the right charger for the right device because I sucked up half of its power on the first leg of the flight, yada yada. This is a thing that I'm like, I could take four of these things, right? They're so small, and I could power everything in my kit. Particularly now, I started a new job this week. The new work laptop I have has nothing but USB-C for power and connections. Um, so I'm actually really super impressed by that piece of technology. That was available. That is available now, and then ships in 30 days. And then the last thing they introduced, which again I also gave a lot of thought to buying this as well, but I didn't, was the Razer Raptor 27, which is a 27-inch monitor. Lots of 27-inch monitors, lots of WQHD or 2560 by 1440. That's my sweet spot that I went to in the last year for gaming, because I just had learned, unfortunately, the painful way that 4K gaming was not really all that it's cracked up to be, and that 2560 is a much better sweet spot in terms of getting the frames that you need at better than HD resolution. But this thing is out now. It's a 165 hertz refresh rate. It has both G-Sync and FreeSync, so it will work great with both NVIDIA and AMD GPUs. Has HDR, so again, if you want to hook up your Xbox or PlayStation 5, last gen or next gen console, and you want that HDR to it, you do. I didn't hear whether or not that has HDMI 2.1, so I'm not positive if it will work across HDMI to get you the higher frames of the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, but it is THX certified. Which, if you're creative and you really need that level of color accuracy, and are really into movies, then that'll be your sweet spot for coloration. This thing tilts 90 degrees, so it lays flat. I don't know if you're super tall. Maybe you like standing up over your computer desk. I don't know. It's $7.99. There is a $6.99 version, and I forget what they knock off to get down. There's a $6.99 version that's 144 hertz. That is also available for now and ships in 30 days. So a lot of things that, for the PC gamer crowd might be relevant. I get that, 90% of E3 is a focus on consoles and the console fandom. But these are some pretty amazing things that I thought came out. A laptop that I think is a good option for people looking for a MacBook Pro, because, again, I have problems with what Apple charges you for a MacBook Pro without a dedicated GPU. The chargers, to me, is amazing for the world getting, to the point where it's opening up for travel now. And a really great monitor that's a healthy alternative to some of the 27-inch Dell and Alienware monitors that cost more. Like, typically, those monitors are, around the same price, or even up into $899, $999, or just over $1,000. So I jumped for joy. I know everybody else didn't, but I thought it was super interesting.
No, that's cool. I think it's more than 90% PC guys here in E2KG. So you said you're not looking for this laptop, right? You said not right now.
I backed off of it today. I am because I've got to get my hands a little dirty in this job and get a little closer to code than I have been for a while. I'm looking at upgrading actually the health and monitoring PC that I'm using tonight. I am looking at upgrading that early, and I was thinking about going to a workstation class laptop because I want power, but I also don't want like a gaudy RGB lit like I need something that I find taking into work and possibly taking with me out on junkets with clients. So
You want the rainbow keyboard, the lights,
right,
rainbow lights keyboard.
yeah. So a Razer Blade 14 is actually a possible contender for a shift. Again, for myself, I was looking for something that was an alternative to a MacBook Pro, and the GAN charger really interests me a great deal. Again, I'm clearing out this office. I'm actually making more headway on it than I have in 3, 4, 5 years. I always start it and just never finish it, and it always fails. And one of the things I'm wrestling with now is I have literally 35 little puck USB chargers running around here. And the notion of getting rid of all of them and getting 3 or 4 of these chargers and just plugging them into the wall and powering everything is pretty impressed by.
Yeah, that'd be pretty nice. DB, anything fancy your eye here? You looking for a gaming laptop?
I would appreciate a gaming laptop, whether or not I am compelled by the price. It's a I'm a little more price restricted there. But again, it's great. The form factor, the amount of power, as you said, that they're putting into it is a good sign. And in a year from now, as prices come down, I'll be tuning back in.
Nice. Well, you know what, DB, stay on the mic because you have a console announcement, don't you?
Oh, I
Or
do. I
equipment
have some
equipment
other
announcement.
hardware announcements here. Yeah, so let's go from high-end specs to what the end specs. So the Intellivision. Thank you, Tommy Tellerico, and all of your Getty Images stock footage of people sitting around a couch playing. This was the weirdest 10 minutes that I've spent in a long time. So this is the Intellivision Amico, which was been announced for a while now. It was supposed to launch last year, got delayed. It is a $250 console that has two controllers. The controllers have like a dial for controls and a touchscreen. And the design of it, the idea behind it is that it's accessible. The whole pitch is that bringing games back to the accessibility and the couch co-opness of the original Intellivision. And it seems, so the controller itself is probably mobile phone size, a little thicker. It's got some buttons on top and the wheel dial for controlling. But it also can then, as they showed, games can play up to 8 or more, and you can have an app on your phone that will do this. And in some ways, it's like a Jackbox party box in terms of being able to play games and have people jump in and play. But it looks like a whole bunch of PopCap games and other kind of early 2000s, mid 2000s types of games. So again, this is not a powerful system, but it seems so oddly placed. Like you saw some gameplay, you never really saw. You saw some people in like stock recorded images of them playing. You saw a lot of still images, which seems not a great way to sell your system. And I just don't know who this is for, where this lands. They talked about the price of games, and the price of games actually seems appropriate for the depth of games. These are games that would be right at home and kind of, in that kind of pick up and play arcade aspects or reimagined aspects of arcades. But the games are $10 to $20. But again, to plop down $250 for this console at a time when you've got other things that can do, it's not drastically different than the Switch in terms of something that has a small, relatively accessible controller that you can put in other people's hands and have them pick up and play. I think the selling point here is that's as complex as the games are going to get. This is a devolved direction. It is almost like it's like I was watching alternative reality where the game industry branched at 1999 and this came out versus the emotion engine on the PlayStation 2, right? That this was, it just seems very, it seems like there's not a market. I don't know who this market is for. Gentlemen, have you had a chance to look at this at all? Am I in the outs here in terms of being so baffled by this, or does anybody have some thoughts here? Game Logic?
Yeah, I've been meaning to challenge you all day, a little wee-skosh. So, and I get it, a little. This to me isn't too far and away different than the Atari VCS, which costs $150 more, and I don't think is any more capable than this is. So actually, on the market in comparison, I feel like this is not a bad deal. The knock on it really is that the NVIDIA Shield, right, is going for like the NVIDIA Shield Pro, which does 4K HDR, plays games that I think are the equivalent because the Intellivision Amico is built on a custom Android Linux operating system, so it's Android. It's repurposed Android, which I strongly suspect the VCS is also. And so I think we're just living in the area in an era where below the Nintendo Switch there is this Android-ish set-top box that is capable of playing games, largely because for whatever reason the Apple TV hasn't seized that space away from everyone else, although it's fully capable. And I don't get why they haven't just smashed that space when you could combine the Apple TV with Apple Arcade. And I mean, it supports that stuff, but for whatever reason, again, I always feel like Apple, feels like gaming is a hobby and it's something to be spoken about, but not really shown. But, but I will say, being an NVIDIA Shield owner, that's a kind of complicated piece of equipment to wrangle, and it's like Android. It's not something I would give to my mom, right, or my kids for them to manage. So I don't know. It seems like, and in the interest of, I've talked a lot about introducing my kids to gaming in some means other than giving them a full-blown Switch. It seems like this might be a viable option. And Android games, right, that I played on the Shield, and I see similar games to that available for the Amico, can be pretty fun when you talk about like mini RC racing games and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can see that point. I mean, first, I'll accept your challenge, and anytime you compare it to the Atari VCS, I don't know that you're making a sale there. I mean, come on, it's like saying, well, it's not that ugly. But
it's not the worst.
Right. But I mean, this is the thing. Like, if this came out during last year at this time when Switches were hard to find, new consoles hadn't launched yet, people were at home more than they've been in a generation or more than a generation, I could see where this would have been a hot commodity on the market, because now suddenly you've got something new to play and it's relatively accessible and everybody was at home, that it would have been very easy for this to find a market. To do it now after the fact, I mean, I could see where there is a market for it. And actually, looking at the games, I would be fine. I'd be glad to play them. If this was a $100 or even $150 box, to me that becomes a much more, and maybe that's what it gets to come the holiday season. Like, I could see if things are still supply chained, sure, that if this is out there sitting on shelves, it becomes, it is the Walgreens plug and play equivalent of a new console to put under the tree.
Do I have permission to cross? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's in the ballpark, and I think I would agree with you. I'm just maybe like, two gradients right higher in the test tube. Just, I think absolutely what you said. I just think the market forces will potentially congeal around a place that makes this a little more of a viable product. Consoles are still incredibly hard to find. There's a world semiconductor shortage. I don't understand, quite frankly, I just don't understand how the market just is continuously introducing new models of new hardware when we're still semiconductor constrained, and I just don't know what the heck is going to happen if Intellivision and maybe even the VCS are taking, like, I don't know whether they're taking like processors that are like below yield threshold, so things like, a silicon wafer goes into the oven and it's supposed to pop out with, CPUs for the Switch, but they don't make the grade, so Intellivision and Atari buy them. They might be the ones who can keep a supply on the shelf. And again, it goes to that we've talked about, right? It goes to that, parent goes into the store or somebody goes into the store to buy a thing. They don't know any better. They don't have like this full technological breadth of situational awareness. They go into the store to buy a thing. The thing that they want isn't there. Do you walk out empty-handed, or if the kids need something to play over the summer, do you buy them the 250 box and just say, look, when we're not semiconductor straight, you wouldn't tell your kids the world semiconductor, but when we're not semiconductor straight, then I'll get you like a Switch, or I mean, great son, I've been hunting for an Xbox Series X, right, for the last month, like to no avail, zero avail. So I don't know. It's a neat thing.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see what happens. This is so very much so. But I will also say, Tao, that the two of us have just talked more about the Intellivision than the majority of the internet combined over the last few days. So feel free to stop us at any point in time.
I
No,
will
you're fine.
I will mention before we close it out, and there might be something to be said and had about the accessibility play as well. If it's the original Intellivision controller had that numeric keypad on the top, which was right one of its hook. I was attracted to that because I was like, I like things that look more complicated. So, making it something that's more that presents like, hey, this is not going to be a buttonology thing, and something that's easier for kids of this generation to acclimate to because they are used to touch panel interfaces. It may be an onboarding thing. It may be a training wheels kind of console.
I didn't see the announcement for this, but did they show like how the touchscreen is going to work with the system?
Yeah, they showed a couple of
What it
different
does?
games, and they had, the touchscreen had the ability. I mean, it worked like your phone touchscreen. I mean, it had the ability to be part of a controller to move a cursor around. It had the ability to be a button. There seemed to be a little bit of motion in there as well, in
Yeah.
terms of gyros. So yeah, it seemed to have lots. I mean, they did kind of go in to kind of a debug mode on the controller and show some of the capacity of it. So it's a really, I mean, it's an interesting piece of technology. Uh, what it ends up, what where you can find it and what it ends up like in 6 months from now will be I'll be curious. I would expect though, based on, and I will, I can see the jury swaying in your factor here, Game Logic, that in terms of this being sold over the Atari VCS, certainly I can see that this being a more successful console for the reasons that you stated.
And not that I'm defending the VCS here, because I'd be the last person to do that. But wasn't that supposed to be a little bit more powerful though? Like, or wasn't it supposed to play modern games? I mean, that was like 5 years ago, I think, when it was first announced. They said that, but um,
And but
I thought it was supposed to be like a little bit more than like what this is trying. This is trying to be more um, like a future retro game system where it has like the old games that they had, but like up resed up and fancier 3D graphics and stuff like that. But
I mean,
I thought Atari was was supposed to be something a little bit more.
I'm seeing Android looking games on here as well. So I think that they're equal. Um, I think one thing is that I think there's some marketing ease going on here, but I will say it may also be what I haven't heard around the Intellivision byline is any reference to you being able to access the operating system. So it may be more powerful in that I know the Atari VCS gives you console level access. You're able to, I think you're able to hook a keyboard and mouse up to the thing and get into the Linux operating system and do more with it that you might want. Like I think you can sideload an emulator onto that box and play PlayStation games or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Old
there's a
systems.
desktop mode there for it that will run Windows, Linux, Chrome,
For
um,
for the Atari or for the
for the VCS. Yeah,
okay,
no, for the
yeah, okay,
VCS,
right.
and the VCS is running on an ADM Ryzen R166.
Yeah. So I
Yep.
don't know that they're that far off in power because there's not that much.
Yeah.
There's not that much elasticity. The spectrum of differentiation at that level of processor isn't that wide. Um, but I think it's you know the level of access to the VCS. I get the sense from what I've seen and what I've heard on the Intellivision box that it's relatively locked down. But
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. So last one, actually, piece of hardware news that I don't actually have it on here, but I just want to say the Xbox Design Lab is back up and running, so you can get the new Xbox Series type controller out there now. So, which I actually did order one because I had never done that before, and I kind of wanted to, but I was just like, well, by the time they announced the Xbox Series game consoles, I was like, yeah, I'll just wait until we get that controller. So, and I do like the new controller too. It's really nice, and I like the share button that's right there in the middle, and it's easy to kind of hit, and it's not in the way like on some other controllers. Um, that I have for like Nintendo and stuff. So I definitely wanted to get another one of those controllers. Since there's only one in the Series X that I got originally. So order yours now. All right, let's jump into Capcom. They're actually I did watch this conference and it was relatively short. They didn't have actually any technically new news. They had a quick blurb about Resident Evil DLC at some point. Like literally, like it was just like a screen, like a black screen with white lettering that said, we're working on it, basically. So that should be coming out probably, I'm assuming, sometime this year. I don't know if they expanded on that later. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any more of that news, but they did announce that. Resident Evil Reverse goes live next month, and that's their multiplayer game, I believe. I can't remember what the gameplay exactly was, but it looked like it was more of a multiplayer. I don't know if it's survival or shooter, but that's coming out next month. They had some Monster Hunter Rise. Another Monster Hunter Rise update will be coming out June 24th. You get some new quests, some more rewards, and emotes, and then also you have Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, coming out July 9th. We'll get a demo on July 25th. They also announced some post-launch DLC on the 15th, which is free, which you'll get the Malamute, which actually was first, I don't know if it was first introduced, but you can actually first use it and ride it in Monster Hunter Rise. That's coming to Wings of Ruin. And then also they announced for both Wings and Ruin, they're going to collaborate with each other, and you'll get basically an armor set for your hunters and palicos, which are the cat-like creatures in the game. So you have those. And then you had Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. They showed off a new trailer, and I forgot. I don't know if they actually had an announcement for when this was going to release or not. I didn't see it.
It's this summer. It's scheduled
Is it this
for, I
summer?
think,
Okay.
July, August. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see any for some reason. In a couple articles I looked at, they didn't have a release date. Okay. And then the very last thing they talked about, which actually I kind of dropped off even before the Ace Attorney part, was they're bringing back the Capcom Pro-Am Tour returns this year. 32 events across 19 territories, and at the time they didn't have if it was just going to be online or if it's going to be local, local live in person type of events or a mixture of both. But that's coming back out, and that's their fighting game tour or series tournaments that they're going to have. So anything, and that was it. Actually, I was kind of surprised they didn't really, like I said, I think all of this was pretty much known, other than the DLC for Resident Evil Village. Everything else I think was pretty much known. We're kind of just really looking for more info and stuff. So yeah, that was it for Capcom. Any talking points from either of you? No? All right. So let's jump into Nintendo. Nintendo had their Direct and Treehouse. I didn't get to watch the Treehouse. I think the Treehouse was like 3 hours long or so, or 2.5, something like that. So I only watched the Direct. It looks like both of you either watched it or kind of watched it afterwards.
Yeah, and I did get a chance to see some of the Treehouse, but the Treehouse was mainly focused on a handful of the games that was shown at the Direct. So you just got a little
just
more
like
depth.
gameplay and stuff. Yeah, talking to the developers. All right, so we got Metroid Dread, new 2D Metroid game coming out October 8th of this year, along with the amiibos, the Metroid amiibo and EMMI. I don't know if that's supposed to. It's that robot guy they showed or girl they showed during the trailer. I know DB, you had mentioned that you played the game before this. I think it was by the same developer.
Yeah, yep. The Mercury Steam is the developer. They also have done. They did the kind of God of War like Castlevanias in the 360 PlayStation era, and I've played the remake of Metroid 2, Samus Returns or Return of Samus. This looks very much within that same mode. It has the melee, the kind of stun aspect that Mercury Stream created for the 3DS Metroid: The Return of Samus. In that game, you ended up having to use it quite frequently to kind of stun block some enemies before you could actually damage them. Here it doesn't look, at least in the Treehouse Live that I watched, you're not using it nearly as much. It doesn't seem as central. It seems a little more fluid. So, but it definitely seems like they were building on what they did there. And this was rumored. This was part of the leak from a couple of months ago in terms of the potential of this being a game, and it makes a whole lot of sense. One, we know that Metroid Prime had to restart 2 years ago, and so where that's at in this series and franchise, but also putting together a 2D game is going to, resource wise, is not as intensive, and so I'm curious to see how this does. I love a 2D Metroid game. I have definitely enjoyed it. Coming off and having it be kind of a follow up to the story from Fusion is again a GBA game that I enjoyed back at this point almost 2 decades ago. Uh, I'm curious to see how it plays though. There were some things in the demo and in the things that kind of concern me in terms of the switching to having to angle, get a shot lined up, whether it's to hit a beam, to open up a door, or to hit a weak spot on an enemy. There seems some of that kind of shift to first person or kind of an over the shoulder that is different than the 2D mode that the rest of the game is in, and that was an area in the other M that really slowed down movement and combat when you had to kind of stop the flow and change the whole direction and aiming that you were doing. So hopefully that is a little more fluid here. So, and actually, just tonight I fired up the 3DS game just to get a little bit of gameplay in to see and remember how that flow was in their last game. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in it. In some ways, I will probably end up buying it to support the franchise, to kind of encourage future development. But whether or not it's a day one purchase for me, I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, this one faked me out a little because they had that 3D, almost first person view when they first started out the trailer, and then I was like, oh, this must be Prime, but then it switched to the 2D aspect. So yeah, I didn't realize it actually kind of switched that way too within the game. I don't know if they showed that in the trailer. I don't remember them like showing that perspective.
Saw a little bit in the treehouse. I think again, it's hard to tell, how much of this is the treehouse live demo trying to show off the variety of the game. So it's hard to know how much this actually plays in, or if this is certain areas, or keys to certain puzzles versus something you're doing every few screens.
So help me out. Is this a Metroid vein? Wait, not Metroidvania. Although that would be a weird meta. Is this a
It's a
Metroid?
Metroid.
Yeah, is it
Yeah,
is
it's
it
a
a
Metroidvania.
Metroidvania?
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, it is. It's in that kind of classic Metroid style of, the big map, the Castlevania, you know, aspect of moving back and forth, needing certain weapons and upgrades to be able to go back and access areas. So yeah, if that's what you're considering, kind of the curriculum term for Metroidvania, then yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was never kind of big on the Metroid games. Like, Prime, those Prime games always look kind of cool, but I wasn't. I could never get into the 2D games, but I don't know. Maybe we'll try this out. And I don't know if in the treehouse if they showed that robot a little bit more. Is it kind of like a what was the thing from Resident Evil Nemesis? Is it like always
Nemesis.
following you
Yeah,
or?
it's hard to tell if it's always following you, if it's following you in certain locations. I mean, it feels a little bit like the Nemesis. It also feels like in Metroid Fusion, you had the alien entity, the SRX or whatever it was that was, took Samus's form, and you couldn't really damage it, so you had to avoid it or kind of get out of the map. This feels the same way, that it's a continuation of kind of that mechanic. They showed off some of the stealth pieces where you can, have kind of a cloaking device that if you're trapped in it in a space with it, you can cloak and stay still, and it will not register your movement. Again, it's hard to tell how frequently that occurs. If that is like the Nemesis where it could pop up anytime, or if it's in you know, certain areas within the map, which I guess in some ways would be my preference. I enjoy, and I actually prefer the 2D Metroids over the Prime series because of the exploration aspect of it. And so if this is always kind of hounding you, it creates a sense of dread, one would say, but it potentially shifts the flow of the game to from being less about exploration and being more about avoidance. So I'd be curious to see how they balance those mechanics.
All right, yeah, we'll have to see. All right, up next from the very first game they showed to the last one. Actually, they're just kind of weird the website I was pulling off of, but Breath of the Wild 2 showed off some gameplay and a release of 2022. They really weren't more specific than that. I mean, it looked like Breath of the Wild. they had some kind of cool new moves that they showed. Kind of he was like stopping time and almost looked like he was like he kind of like was able to push things as he was as the time stopped. Had this weird like slime or gel kind of a substance that he was actually able to use kind of go through this rock face. So that was kind of cool. That was kind of it. I mean, they kind of showed him like falling through the air. I guess there's islands in the air, a la Skyward Sword, that you're going to be able to go to, or I don't know if it's exclusively on those islands, but they showed that gameplay and kind of talked about that a little bit later on. I did see a little bit of that, but that was pretty much all they showed. I think. I don't know. Did they have any other details in the treehouse on that one?
Not really. No, you didn't get. They didn't go into any gameplay. They just what you saw in the trailer is really what they showed. The only other piece that kind of came out afterward is there is a subtitle, but they're not giving it away yet because it ties into the plot. So yeah, I mean it looks really nice. I'm really curious to see how this will run on the existing Switch, and assuming there is some type of Switch refresh coming next year, how essential that will be in terms of maintaining a frame rate or graphical fidelity.
Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty much graphically the same as the first one. I mean, it looked a little bit better, but I mean, I didn't seem to be any kind of big jump or anything. So, and there's one article that I liked is like how they didn't want to give out the title yet. So it's like Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild 2, and then like something else. So that's kind of interesting that there's more to it. I guess, Cleese, any thoughts on this? I don't know if you ever even played the first one, or I'm sorry, Game Logic.
I played the first one. I did not finish the first one, and therefore I don't have a ton of interest about the second one. I mean, game's gonna be too big. I mean, if I do play it, it's gonna be a toe dip to just like see what the experience is like. But so to me, it's not that I'm not excited about it. It's not. There were things in this show that I looked for to help define why do I own my Switch and why am I going to keep my Switch, right? Or is it time to sell the thing off like the Nintendo Wii? And so Breath of the Wild 2 wasn't one of them. Like, if I have the Switch, I'll play it, but it's not one of the reasons why I'll be keeping it.
So did you see anything here that convinced you to not sell your Switch?
Oh yeah. I saw a number of things. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just put kind of the quick things here. I'm not going to go through everything. So if I skip what you liked, just let me know. And then next up, actually, I think this was the very first reveal that they did. The Smash character, Tekken's Kazuya Mishima. I think that's how you say it. Too bad Swiss isn't here. I'm sure he knows how to say that. He'll join the fight. He will. Well, they haven't announced an amiibo, but I'm just assuming they'll have an amiibo at some point. There's no release date yet for this character, also, but they're going to have another stream on June 28th to show off more of the character, all his moves, and although I don't know. Even during that reveal, it seemed like they showed a good bit of everything. I don't know if they showed his final smash though.
Well,
I don't remember seeing that.
It looked like Tekken, and that's I mean, I think I saw parts of this maybe disjointed from the show. I was so disappointed because I was like, oh great, there's going to be a Tekken on the Nintendo Switch, and then it was this, and so and I thought you were familiar with the Tekken lore, Tao, but like
a little bit.
This is not the most prominent member of the Mishima clan. Like, so I don't know why why is it not Jin? Why is it not Heihachi? Like, there are other characters from the Tekken franchise that could have been incorporated. Why do you? In fact, this guy was kind of like the punk character in between Heihachi and Jin, who just got squeezed out. And I'm like, even when you play Tekken, it's hard to find him relevant, right? Like, he appears in the lore for a very short time, and then the story really, right, and at least its origins really becomes about Heihachi and Jin. So. I don't really get it.
Yeah, I kind of fell off after I don't know about 3 or 4 maybe in the stories, or even in the game. I hadn't played one for a while, so I remember him. Wasn't he? He was the one. Was he the one that like turned into the devil? Like was his other form or whatever? Okay, no, I got yes and no.
I thought Jin became devil. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and I think Jin has. I mean, wow, we're going into Tekken lore, aren't we? So yeah, I think Jin has.
We did a television, so we can do Tekken lore.
Fair enough. He like part of that's his whole conflict, right? Is that the whole throw me into the volcano to try to release the inner demon within me, but in the the preview here, you do see like a purple shadowed winged aspect of this character. So there must be some demon aspect here as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm wrong. I guess Kazuya does become devil. I guess I don't know. Okay,
I
I
know he
stand
had that like
corrected.
he has that I-beam attack, and I thought maybe that was Smash likes to do mixture of melee and far attacks too. So I figured maybe that was why they threw him in there. It's kind of got a little variety there for his attacks. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, okay. I mean, that's fine. I guess I'm not like I said. I've kind of fell off of Tekken,
So,
and even
so,
yeah. Go ahead.
so I guess that's the correction. So I was like, I don't even know why this guy's in here, and I guess it's because he's devil, who I think was the big bad in like the first or second or third Tekken game, or maybe all three of them.
Yeah.
I was just always more familiar with Heihachi and Jin, so gotcha.
All right. All right. So like once again, like I said, they'll have June 28th showing off of this character, and I'm assuming they'll probably give the release date that day. Up next, we have Life is Strange Remastered Collection coming out later this year. And then the True Colors, which is the newer game, which I don't think is out for any console yet. That's coming out September 10th. So we got Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy Cloud version, which is kind of a surprise. I didn't realize it was the cloud version until later on when I was looking up this this list here. That's coming out October 26th. I believe that is day and date. Then I'm assuming.
So you mentioned I
Yeah.
should stop you. So just going back to Life is Strange. So this
Oh yeah.
starts part of the things that I say. Again, one of the things that I find exciting about the Switch, and it's always weird how I think of it is juxtaposed from other people, because there were a lot of negative feelings about this direct, that it was not all that worthwhile to big Nintendo fans. I think I tweeted or I wrote like Nintendo, the Switch is not my main. So it doesn't concurrently. It's not that I'm a little disappointed, but by the same token, it also doesn't need to do that much. And as whatever we are, industry analysts, bloggers, whatever, I think we all recognize that in the fourth year of its life cycle, I'm not expecting to get like 3-4 big mascot releases on the Switch every year. We'll be fortunate if we get one, but those are probably going to come more like once every 18 months. And they're going to keep the sweat pumps going, right? With things like Metroid Dread, like you're not going to get like big releases 2 or 3 times a year. But what I do love about the Switch, again, I go back to the Razer presentation, right? And we talk about the typical gaming laptop. It's like a 10-pound thing with like a 5-pound power supply. I use the Switch as a thing to take my third-party games that I normally would play on console or PC on the go without having to lug a big gaming laptop. I have not played Life is Strange because that game just isn't in my like central core thing. But I might get those games if they drop as a remastered collection, and you can buy them in a big bundle, and you can put it on the Switch and take it on the go, because it's just something to while the time away with. That I think DBQ, you were the one that mentioned, like, look, when I'm home and I have access to all my stuff, I'm not going to use that like premium game time to play certain things, right? But when I'm devoid of that stuff and away from it, this might be the kind of thing that I play.
Nice. Let's see. Guardian Galaxy Cloud version. Did you either of you do any of the other 2 cloud games? There's a Hitman 3 and Control. I don't know if you guys played it at all.
I didn't, but again, this was one of the things that I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna spend a lot of time playing a third-person action adventure game like this on premium next generation consoles or PC. But again, might pick it up on the Switch and take it with me on the go. So I was super jazzed to hear that this was coming to the Switch. Was the reason, one of the reasons why I added it to the list.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Worms Rumble, 32-player crossplay battle. I guess it's kind of battle royale-ish, I suppose.
Kind of a
June
battle
23rd.
arena. Yeah, it's out on
Yeah,
PC
battle arena,
now.
I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, coming out June 23rd. Astria Ascending. All I have is the release date for that one, September 30th. I can't remember what that game actually was, like what it entailed, but it's coming out September 30th. We got 2 Point Campus, the sequel to 2 Point Hospital, I believe, coming out next year, 2022. This one I'm excited about. Cruisin' Blast. This is the racing game, kind of like Cruisin' USA from the old day, 64, I think it originally came out. They got 30 tracks, 4 players. Um, coming out this fall. Console exclusive was what they iterated on that one. I'm kind of weird, but I always thought that was a Nintendo made game anyway. So I was kind of confused on the console exclusive thing when they announced that. But maybe
I
it
thought
came out.
Cruis'n
To other
was a
things.
Midway aspect back in the day before when Midway still was a thing.
Yeah, but I thought it only came out on the Nintendo though, didn't it? I thought
On
maybe
the
it came out on other
64,
systems.
yeah. I think,
Yeah, but
but
I mean,
it
I
was an
thought it was only.
arcade. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it was arcade too. But yeah, I always like this series, so I'm definitely gonna probably pick this one up.
Another one of the games that I got excited about. It's a racing game. It's multiplayer, so 4-player. So it's not like a big Forza battle royale thing or a big mainline game where there's like 8 to 16 to 20. Like what is the Codemasters game that has like 64 player races on Stadia, right? So it's 4-player. So I think it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I just hope they, I hope they fix like the car collision because it was like you touch somebody and you just like spin out like right away. So hopefully that's a little bit better now on this generation of systems. Up next, Mario Golf Super Rush. They say you can use your Mii obviously here, other than just your Mario characters. We'll get free updates coming out June 25th and pre-order now. WarioWare, get it together.
Just
Sorry.
on the Mario, and I think this is second to last one that I also got excited
That's right.
about. Summertime game. Gotta have something with me to go on. The July 4th weekend to the in-laws or whatever. So, this is the thing. And this is the thing that like other people might be interested in playing, right? If we hook it up, if I take my docking station or whatever on the go with me. So, or just sit with my headphones on and play by myself while everybody else talks so that I don't fall asleep. So, is this a new game or is this a remake? You guys who?
This is a brand new game. I mean, it's
Yeah.
by Camelot, so it's by the same studio that did kind of the classic Mario Golf stuff. And this is, we've seen it in a couple of different iterations. We got a little bit more information here, but because it releases in a week, and I'm always down for some Mario sports games, and this looks exciting. My kids and I have talked about it. The one piece here that we found out in terms of news from the Japanese website is the rush mode is only one person per console. So if you're going to play that with, you need more people, or maybe 2 people per console. I'm not sure, but but there are up to 4 players, kind of in a regular golf round as well. So it goes back to the.
Can you play the rush mode online though?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I think so.
That too.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so that would be awesome if you could pound through 18 holes of golf like rapidly, just everybody going in rapid success. And this is, I mean, for me, which maybe it fits somebody else, but if I'm sitting on the precipice of getting back into golf, and so the notion that again, I could take up something that I actually do an outdoor pastime in a portable format with me on the go while I can't go to the golf course. Also, again, super attractive.
Yeah, I'm looking a little bit more to this than I did for Mario Tennis, even though I did buy that one pretty much right away when it came out. But I don't know, so for some reason that didn't kind of hook me. This one looks a little bit more fun, especially the rush mode. So definitely get this one on day one. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, WarioWare, get it together. New micro games coming at you with 2 players now. You can do same console. I was pretty excited about this one too. I liked the last one on, I think it was the Wii. I don't think it was the Wii U. I think it was the Wii. I came at the last WarioWare, or at least console WarioWare.
The Wii was the last console new one because you had smooth moves early in the Wii's life cycle. The Wii U had Game & Wario, which was a little not so much micro games. And the last WarioWare was WarioWare Gold on the 3DS, which was really just a compilation of previous WarioWare games. So it's kind of the first time you're getting something new. It's also something that strangely it was kind of rumored because Nintendo sent out a survey that included people's impressions of WarioWare. So it started to get people talking about if something was coming.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely excited for this one. I didn't have a release date on this one. I don't remember if they had one.
It's September. Yep.
September? Okay. Cool. Next up is Strange Brigade, which actually did come out already that day when they announced it. Co-op kind of a shooter. I was trying to figure out what this game is exactly, and I didn't get a chance to go back and look.
So I lied. This was not. That was not the second last. This is. I was super excited about this. Again, looking for that type of core gameplay that's core to me being available on the Switch, which something like this isn't available in high volume on the Switch. So this is a third-person shooter co-op game. I think up to a
I
maximum of
thought it
four.
was first person because it kind of plays like Indiana Jones Left 4 Dead.
It's described as a third-person shooter.
Oh, maybe I'm mistaken.
So described as a third-person shooter. We'll resolve which one it is after the show. Previously released on Xbox One, PlayStation 4 back in 2018. It came out for Stadia last year, so I need to go find that on Stadia as well. But just came out, as Tao mentioned, for the Nintendo Switch. Supports up to 4 players maximum online. So it has a variety of gaming modes, which I'll need to look up. But again, I was super excited about this being available right now. In this year that I've mentioned before is like, Back 4 Blood, not saying all these games are coming out this year, but Back 4 Blood, Anna Crucis. Is the Ascent another 4-person co-op shooter? I don't know.
No, but we also have the Aliens game that's coming out, which is a 4-person shooter as well.
Right, and then Redfall eventually coming out, and not Resident Evil, and Rainbow Six, Extraction. Right. So
Extraction.
Getting into the market. And again, no offense, Tao. I'm glad that you love battle royales. I don't. So just getting that volume of 4-person co-op kind of game into the market in volume, and they all look. Right now, they look like they're all going to be good. So, yeah, this is one that I will be.
Strange Brigade's been out on PC and other consoles, and you're right, it is a third-person game, so yeah. It's got a good player base already. If it gets crossplay, it's got a year and a half, 2 years worth of content that it can tap into. So yeah, to bring it over, like you said, it's rounding out and adding to kind of the breadth of the Switch lineup.
Yeah, it was 2018 on the consoles, and then 2020 for Stadia when it was released. And how dare you not like what I like? Game logic. No, I'm just kidding. This one looked actually pretty cool. The cover to when I'm looking at the cover to the game case here, that it does look kind of familiar. So I think I don't know. I guess it came out. When was it? August. So beginning of kind of that holiday season. So I kind of might have got just lost in the shuffle. Next up, we got the sequel of Mario and Rabbids, Sparks of Hope, coming out. This 2022. This one looked like it was the same trailer from the Ubisoft Forward. I don't think there was anything new. So there's that. Like I mentioned, I think last show, that game was hard, at least to me, the first one. So I don't know if I'll pick up this one. This one looks actually pretty cool. I mean, the graphics look pretty good on this one. It looked like, I don't know if the view looked a little different or if it was just maybe just from just like the trailer they were showing, but it looked like it was more than just kind of that top-down view. But I'm
and sure. Swiss and I talked about this last show that it moves away from the grid tile base into something that feels more like movement zones.
Yeah. So yeah, that might be a little bit better for me, maybe. My baby XCOM there gameplay I can do. Up next, another big one I think for a lot of people. They've been waiting for some gameplay of this. Shin Megami Tensei 5, released in this year, November 12th. I've never played any of these games. I don't know if I will, because I've bought a few of these games the last couple of years on the Switch, and I like get excited for them and I start playing them, and then it's like about a month or two later, I'm like, I just kind of fall off. So I don't know if either of you have played any of these games in the series. If you're excited for it.
I played a little bit of 4 on the 3DS. It is a well-regarded RPG, but not in my wheelhouse.
Right. Yeah, I tried to onboard with this one too, and unfortunately is the case with a lot of JRPGs. It did keep me entertained a little bit on the Nintendo Switch, but didn't hold my attention all the way through.
Yeah. Up next, another fan favorite, or something people have been clamoring for, Advance Wars 1. This will be, I guess, did they call it a remaster? I don't know if they even said remaster, but
yeah, it's a remaster. It's 1 and 2. Yep.
Yeah, Reboot Camp, released in this year, December 3rd. So I played. Oh man, I can't remember which one I played. I think it was probably the second one. I don't think I ever played the first one. and I was excited for this one, and I was just like, I was just missing something. There's another one I couldn't get into, even though I like those kind of strategy games. But have either of you
Oh, I
ever played
love
this?
I love the
You
second
like
one. Yep.
wasn't there one too that was like a was it first or third person battalion? I don't know if it was
I
like an
think you're
offshoot of
thinking of
these.
Battalion Wars,
Oh,
which
okay,
kind of
that's the one I'm
treats
thinking of.
similar, and that was on GameCube and Wii. This
Okay.
really hasn't seen anything since Days of Ruin, on the DS, which kind of took it into a little grittier future. You had two of them on the DS. You had the first one, which kind of kept this kind of anime style, and the second one on the DS went in a little more realistic style. And this was my surprise. This everything else in the Nintendo Direct was things that I either speculated on because of rumors or things that we already knew about. And so this was really the surprise game to me in this show. And to hear that Way Forward's also involved with it, it becomes something I'm really excited about. I appreciate Way Forward and the art style that they usually bring and their design sensibilities. So looking forward to this. I know that there's been some kind of it's gotten some criticism online in terms of the art style, uh, but I think it fits very much with how I remember it, at least in my mind's eye, in terms of the, you know, 2001 was because the first one came out right around 9/11, and the second one was I think 2003, 2004.
Yeah, I'll be all over this. This is like the one of the very rare exception for turn-based strategy games or strategy games in general, turn-based or real-time, that I will play on console. I normally just say nope, must be occur on PC. This is one instance where because that's the only place to play it is on a Nintendo platform, and I think these play well. I think was that on was it on the Nintendo DS? Was what this?
Started on the GBA and then was on the DS.
Okay, so I
Yep.
played it. I played it
At
on
least
the
of
Nintendo.
the American versions,
Okay.
because it goes all the way back to the NES.
Yeah, I played it a little bit. I played a little bit of it on the Nintendo DS. Like in one of those windows where I probably had it, but then turned around and got rid of my DS shortly thereafter. So I'm huge looking forward to this. Again, another great game to be able to play on the go. From a more recent gaming experience on Android, reminds me a great deal of kind of like Great Little War Game on Android. So really looking forward to getting this in the lineup. So for me, not needing a Mario title or a Zelda title right away, 6 or 7 kind of tier 2 kind of double A games on the Nintendo Switch is like that. That convinces me sufficiently to hold on to the thing rather than get rid of it.
Up next, speaking of Zelda, we have the Game and Watch Zelda Edition. Legend of Zelda includes three classic, or includes Legend of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, and Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, as well as a special version of Game & Watch Classic Ermin, starring Link as a playable character. This is being released November 12th for $49.99. I put $50 there though. So, either of you get the Game & Watch? What was it? The Mario Game & Watch? I think that came out recently for the 35th anniversary. No, so I'm assuming there's no interest for this one. Up next, another one that kind of surprising: Mario Party Superstars, which includes some Nintendo 64 board. I think they're all Nintendo 64 game boards, and then 100 mini games from the whole series, not just from the 64. This can be played online from the get-go, unlike the recent Mario, which I think. I think it was
Just
some
got
parts of it
online
were.
this year. No, it was
Was
well,
there? I thought there was one game mode that was you could do online. I thought maybe
maybe,
not.
but I think it really was this year when the online stuff hit.
Yeah.
And I mean, and to me, that was the sign that this game was in development. That the fact that they released a patch that put online into a 3-year-old game, to me was a good flag that they're working on something, and this was, they had developed it for a different game, and it works because they're built on kind of the same structure. So it makes sense. I mean, the Super Mario Party is in the top 10 Switch games of all times in terms of sales. So it seems very realistic that they would come back to this and, you know, So it's not not a surprise. I'm sure it'll sell well. So whether or not people have, in some ways it could do. There's a lot of Mario Party nostalgia from some Nintendo fans, and to go back to the older boards and mini games is probably going to resonate for those that have played them on the N64 and GameCube.
Yeah, I think this last one fared a little bit better than the previous versions of Mario Party. I know a lot of people kind of like the DS version too, but so it was on DS or 3DS. I don't know if it was how well it did, but I think there was one on the what was it the 64 or maybe the Wii. I'm sorry, not the 64. The Wii or the Wii U that it was like pretty much like everybody hated more or less. But
Yeah, the Wii U had 10, I think. Then there
okay,
were 2 on the Wii, 8 and 9. And
okay,
then yeah, so it's been around. I think part of the reason why the Wii U one was not liked as much as the way that it handled traversal on the boards, that it put everybody in a vehicle and you kind of moved
yeah,
around in like a big the game of life car around the board.
yeah. All right, so that's coming out this year, October 29th. So that should be fun. Then we had Monster Hunter Stories 2, which I talked about before, and that was pretty much the same trailer. Another one, I think that was actually maybe leaked right before the show or the day before. Super Monkey Ball Mania, excuse me, a remake of the first 2 games. And I didn't get a release on that one either. So, not sure when that was coming out. Probably this year, most likely.
Yeah, I think it's this fall again as well.
Okay. Up next, we have Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, September 24th, with some new content coming out. I actually might pick up this one. I know some people were kind of lukewarm on this one, but I thought it looked kind of cool, so maybe I'll get around to getting it now. We had, and I don't know how to say this.
Danganronpa.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Decadence, which collects the first 3 games. And once again, I thought I'd put some of the release dates on these ones, but I guess not. But I'm trying to remember if that was coming out this year or next year, but that's coming out. We had Doom Eternal: The Ancient Gods DLC coming out. Oh, actually, that's out now, or at the time they announced it. And then finally, Fatal Frame: Mating of the Black Water, which I always forget about that game series. I've never played any of these, but they always seem to pop up on the Nintendo platforms. At least the last few seem to have. I don't know if you guys have played either of these or any of these in the series.
I think it pops up on there because Nintendo holds some of the license rights to it. I'm not sure what the
Oh, okay.
actual back end of that is, but there is some type of ownership that Nintendo has over this series as well.
Oh, okay. And I think that was pretty much it. I thought the list was longer, but I must have duplicated stuff on here by mistake, unless I don't know.
No, it looks like we kind of duplicated some things. So, I
Okay.
mean, that was a good chunk of it was a 40-minute presentation. So,
Yep. All games. And then, like I said, they had the treehouse afterwards, and they kind of just deep dived a little bit more into that. So, I mean, for me, I mean, there was a lot of stuff on here. I wasn't like. What surprised me was Cruise and Blast, which I'm like I said, I really love those games. Um, the Marvel one, which I didn't think Guardians of the Galaxy was going to have a chance to get on there, but you got that cloud version, so that's pretty cool. And even the Advance Wars one, excuse me, even though I'm not a big Advance Wars guy, I just was like, oh, well, I'm surprised we're going to actually release this, even though it's just a re-release. But hopefully, if it does well, we'll get a newer ones of the series coming out. So overall, I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't have any problems with it. Like I think Gascles was or Game Logic was saying, there's some some poo pooing on the internet, of course. But I think overall it was pretty good. I mean, the show Breath of the Wild, a little, even though it was just a little bit, got a new Smash character, and like I said, I mentioned those other games, and you got WarioWare too. So I mean, I think it was a pretty good direct this time around. So that was it. I know there's some other smaller stuff that happened throughout the week. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to speak on as far as conferences or just announcements that came out?
Hey, I got a few rapid fire questions I wanted to ask you guys if you have time.
sure.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, so I'm curious to know what was your guys' most anticipated game, the thing that wowed you the most, the thing that you're definitely going to be, I mean, that is on your, maybe you pre-ordered it already, but the thing that's you're definitely going to be playing, hands down, unquestioned. or the thing that you were happiest to see.
I'll do two here. So, for on the Nintendo side, that's my Mr. Nintendo here. The Mario Party Superstars, that was another big surprise. I didn't think there was going to be a second one
And
that was going to come out.
and it just it's out. So this is for the entirety of E3, not just for the shows we talked today.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My second one, I'll say in a second. So this is like the biggest surprise, and when I was like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, I know it's kind of like it's going back in time. Kind of a remasterish or ultimate um, series thing here, but I thought it was kind of cool, and I've always liked the Mario parties, even the Wii U one. I liked it. So, and then the other one, which is kind of surprising to me because I usually don't play these games, and this one I guess, and I mentioned this in the last show, is a little bit more forgiving, but is the new Forza Horizon. It just looks beautiful, and it just looks like just kind of cool to drive around these big landscapes and stuff like that. So those are probably like the two big games that excited me and kind of surprised me throughout the week.
Yeah, Horizon 5 surprised me enough that I fired up Horizon 4 last night and just cruised around and did a few races for the first time in I had thought that was a 2019 game, but it was 2018. So it's been a while. I don't know that I've played it since the Lego stuff came out. But yeah, I mean that's Playground does a great job. That's a beautiful engine. Um and I'll stick on Xbox for a minute as another game that really excites me is Halo Infinite and the multiplayer aspect of it. On Monday we got more about multiplayer. We didn't, we got a little bit of kind of a teaser reel of that on the showcase on Sunday that we talked about. But on Monday they kind of dove in a little bit more in terms of some of the gameplay pieces, having a separate kind of, I don't know, almost like a tutorial mode, someplace where they're throwing in and gives you a chance to learn some of the mechanics, some of the strategies. I think is smart. I think one of the other things that they're doing, I love this idea of that battle passes never expire. That you can buy a battle pass and you can have multiple battle passes that you haven't finished out, and you can choose which one you want to work toward at the time that you're playing. So that to me is beneficial in the long run. Like I don't feel it makes me more inclined to buy a battle pass because I don't feel the pressure of, the same pressure of like a subscription where I better get my $15 amount out of this MMO because I paid for it, or I better play this battle pass because I've paid for it. I've got I've got lots of time to play this battle pass because I can dip back in now and again and keep working toward it. So I like that model a lot. I think that it's a new wrinkle into the battle pass model that we really haven't seen to the same degree. So the Halo multiplayer, surprisingly to me, I've found myself hunting around, and if I didn't have a meeting yesterday morning, I probably would have found myself at a GameStop waiting to see if I could have picked up a Series X. So I think that's my big takeaway here in terms of the surprises, that I feel more compelled to pick up a Series X now than I have.
So that was going to be one of the rapid fire questions I also wanted to ask you guys. And maybe you can continue if you were heading more so down the path. But what platform were you happiest with? And not necessarily saying who had the best show, because I think that line of discussion is a little degenerative to a certain extent. But like what platform did you become the most excited about as you entered E3 and are now exiting its future?
So I'll keep rolling. To me, it still is. I mean, in some ways, it's not a fair comparison because we didn't get anything out of Sony. Um, but even if we did, I feel like right now, Game Pass is the platform that I'm most interested in. When there becomes a Game Pass dongle, sign me up. I'll pre-order it. I want to stick it on another TV. I think that the value there, the fact that the games I'm excited for are coming day one to Game Pass, and at the same time, I'm getting a lot of the indie stuff that I'm enjoying. The small game stuff. Just this week, I downloaded. There's 40 demos that are out there on Xbox right now in terms of indie games. I downloaded probably about 20 of them, and some of my favorite games that I discovered last year were through this as well, like Raj and Unspottables. So this is a nice kind of combination. I feel like the Switch did what it needed to do in terms of giving a robust fall. We have a strong lineup for the fall with kind of a core game with Metroid, some family games with WarioWare and Mario Party, and then a Pokemon game. So they've got a solid lineup for the fall, and that's really what I expected and wanted to see out of Nintendo, is to have their fall lineup locked down. And the fact that when it's not another rehash of a Wii U game to kind of help fill out their roster is beneficial. But yeah, for me, I feel very bullish in terms of where Microsoft is sitting right now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with DB. The same thing as Game Pass is, you get Back for Blood. You have, for me at least, all the Yakuza games on there, and Like a Dragon's going to be coming up there, I believe, soon if it's not on there already.
It's out already, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, which I still have, I think there's like 5 or 6 games from Yakuza up there already before even that one. And then you have all these the smaller games like 12 Minutes and all these other indie games that'll be coming out. Yeah, I mean you just can't at least for me, I shouldn't say you can't. I can't, I can't beat that. Even though I love the Switch and I love Nintendo, and they got a bunch of games that are coming out that are that look good too. But I mean, Game Pass is to me is where it's at, and I've been sticking to my my resolution for this year. I haven't bought anything on Game Pass. I mean, on Xbox so far. I've just been using Game Pass, and there's plenty of stuff on there that I can play. Coming up this year and even up to next year. That's going to be coming out there. And a real quick, DB, I was going to ask you when they were talking about the Battle Pass. They didn't mention a price for that, did they? Like the initial price?
I don't think I didn't see a price for it. I mean, I would anticipate that it would be the $10, what seems like an industry standard at this point.
Yeah, usually, yeah. And I know Fortnite kind of did that when they first came out, where there were certain skins that you had to grind, certain levels to get to, and then even after the battle pass was done, you could still kind of grind to that. But that was just for those certain skins, and all the other back blings and umbrellas that you can get and stuff. That was pretty much totally lost. So it's kind of cool how they're going to integrate like that, and you can just play at your pace basically.
So Game Logic, how about you?
So the game that I was happiest to hear about, which for me it diverges. It's not the same thing as my most anticipated game. The game I was happiest to hear about was Guardians of the Galaxy. I malign Square Enix for the publisher that they are, because I just don't look. I work a job. My job has expectations. I have to deliver stuff. I don't just get to toil away for infinite amounts of time, right? And so I kind of have never understood the whole Square Enix fandom with games that are constantly pushed out of their delivery windows and sometimes never materialize, and then the repackaging and reselling of games at a lower value point. I just don't get it. So, but I'm a comic book guy. I love the Avengers. The movies, the Avengers movies, is much more relevant to me. The Avengers movies is a much more relevant cinematic occurrence across a lifetime for me than Star Wars. And remain its consistency, right? Because Star Wars, if you look at those 3 sagas, they're each different quality levels in your personal makeup. The Avengers, that Infinity Saga was a hugely relevant thing for me for the entire 23 movies. So, while I concur with the malignment of Square Enix and how they've handled the Avengers game, I've been super excited to see Guardians of the Galaxy is essentially a turnaround, an alibi, it's a makeup game, right? For what the Avengers has been. Whether or not the Avengers is a bad game, it's just the marketing and the placement and how it's been cared for is just not what I would have wanted, right? So, but Guardians of the Galaxy is just kind of that's a shut the heck up moment, right? That's look, for all the people who have doubted our ability to handle the Avengers property, let me show you something, right? So I'm glad to see it, and it's so true to the movies, right? And maybe even so to the comic, but it's just an amazing thing. I'm hoping that it plays out well. My most anticipated game, I couldn't nail down one. I would just say I'm super jazzed, as you guys have heard me mention, about the opportunity to play 4-player co-op. This one with a number of things that are kind of in that Left 4 Dead ethos. So, and the platform that I'm happiest with to date so far is Nintendo, just because look, I'm gonna play on PC. I'm gonna play on Xbox. Like I don't question whether or not those things are gonna happen. I'm gonna get fed games that are in my, in my wheelhouse, right? With a certain degree of consistency. I was very happy to see Nintendo come through and, like I said, put 6 or 7 games kind of in my windshield that are enough for me to fire it up periodically and keep me occupied, right, for the next year. Whereas I've definitely been teetering on the edge of like, I don't know why I keep this thing like unplugged sitting over in the corner. So I was happy to hear that. Um, so yeah, I think that's it.
Nice. All right. One last question for you guys. Anything that you are kind of disappointed that you didn't get to see, that they didn't show, I should say, from any developers out there? I think that was kind of like a Swiss was kind of wondering about that. For me, man, like where's Bayonetta 3, man? It's been it's been a long time since actually they haven't showed anything of that. That they showed a logo like however long ago, and now they haven't even. There's no gameplay. There hasn't been anything really. So I was just I was kind of hoping they'd show a little bit of something of that in during their direct, but I don't know. I guess they're still working on it. So how about you guys, DB? Anything that you were looking for?
I mean, I think I was hoping to see that things like the Playground Games Fable game or Massive's Star Wars game were further along. And I think the fact that we didn't see anything and we've seen other things from both of those studios shows how early in development they are. Uh, I think in some ways, how much of that is last year in quarantine COVID related delays, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the piece there. I think the other thing I thought we might have seen was some type of Mario 3D update. Rather, it was some type of Odyssey. In that, because that's been 3 years at this point. That it seems like we're coming around on that cycle. But so yeah, not a ton. But I think we knew going into it that there were a lot of things that weren't going to show up ahead of time.
Yeah, they had a bunch of companies out there letting us know that stuff's not coming. Game Logic?
I mean, for me, I would have preferred to have seen a Forza Motorsport title. Like, I mean, I'm glad Forza Horizon is coming, but I like having the two series and what they each emphasize and their differentiation from each other. And it's clock cycle time wise, it's time for a Motorsport title. It's not time for a Horizon title yet. I would have been fine with a Horizon title next year. So I was a little disappointed not to see that. I would have liked to have seen what the next iteration of the Division is going to be, or at least to hear something about it. So, because Ubisoft is making this shift and this pivot, and I kind of want to know that's a game that's in my makeup. I just need to know what's coming next, or do I just need to keep pumping through the Division 2? I think the most disappointing thing, and it's also the most interesting thing, and we're going to see what's going to happen. In DBQ, you mentioned it, slightly unfair question when I asked, what platform are you most jazzed about now? Because Sony didn't present, and I think the output side of this, we see that like it makes a difference when you miss a drum beat, right, in the market. Like no one's talking about anything other than Xbox right now, and maybe that's deserved, and maybe they're just due, but like we this is similar to in the technology market. Like I was like, well, Windows sells like 90% of the market and Mac OS is like 10% of the market, so who cares? But the fact of the matter is that Apple's in the zeitgeist. That's what people talk about, and that's kind of what's going on here with Microsoft. Like, who cares that the PlayStation 5 is selling more, right? Like, nobody's talking about anything but Microsoft, and so it's weird that we're kind of turning this corner now. And I forget. I know I asked, and I should have looked it up, but I don't know when the next state of play is. But like, I don't know, and I haven't played my PlayStation 5 in like a month, right? So like I just don't know. And then by the same token, Call of Duty, right? In the last few weeks, I've mentioned that like as I've thought about like all these small studios that have like Activision has just gone through and like raised the land and taken every small studio that it had that used to pump out like 12, 13, 15 titles per year and just converted them all to working on Call of Duty. And it's become this behemoth. And now I get why Zampella and I forget what the other guy's name is. I get why they left. because I'm sure that they were at a point where they were like, why do we need Activision? Like they could see, I'm speculating, but they could see the future now, that like the future of Activision is Call of Duty. So like, why are we not like kings of the land? And so again, I mean, I'm super happy season 4 has started. I'm super happy with, Black Ops Cold War, but when you talk about first person shooters and you talk about big first person shooters, positive or negative, nobody's talking about anything right now but Battlefield. And so be interesting to see what Call of Duty has up their sleeve, because Battlefield's going modern, which apparently people seem like they're more excited about being in that modern environment. I think it just creates more tools, because as warfare has progressed, technological advances have led to more stuff on the battlefield. Um, and Call of Duty's going back to World War II. Like, so I don't know how that's going to play out in the fall. So, you know, they missed a drum beat now, and now, we're kind of out off kilter in the marketplace, and so we see what Sony responds with and kind of what Call of Duty responds with, respectively.
Yeah. So what did you guys think overall? I mean, of the whole E3 digital experience. Like, to me, I mean, I really liked it just because we weren't getting like peppered with with, announcements every week. Like we kind of were last year. Although it's the year's still young, more or less, but we're halfway through the year, so we could still get all this pepper spray stuff. But I think it's not going to be as bad as it was last year, where it was almost like every week or every couple of weeks we get these little conferences here and there that were just kind of coming out, and we're getting slammed, trying to get a hold of everything. And here, this is more or less cohesive announcements and stuff. I mean, and obviously that like you guys mentioned, we haven't seen Sony yet, so there's they haven't let us know what else they have coming up. We didn't see anything from EA, not that I know of, at least. um
No, they have their
uh,
EA Play in July.
yeah. So, and like
Well,
like I guess it just
other than Battlefield.
other than Battlefield, yeah. I mean, and we didn't really see anything from Activision. Like, maybe I know Sony has Call of Duty more or less right now, so that'll probably come out on one of their directs possibly, or they'll just do their own. Activision will do their own thing. So I mean, and did you feel this was warranted? I mean, was it valid that they we had this E3 was coming back, since we didn't get anything last year? What do you guys think, DB?
So I think, from our perspective, as somebody who's kind of sits on the outside of the industry and is not official press but follows it tightly, it works really well because everything was accessible for us. There wasn't the need to kind of walk around the show floor to discover things. The challenge there is that it also meant some things got lost in the shuffle. I think when we did our Sunday show, that we had to cut the wholesome direct and some of the other indie showcases where they dropped a ton of games and game information, and some of that gets lost in the shuffle just by the sheer volume of it, where in the past you might have had other outlets writing up things because they discovered them on the show floor. And so I think that's one piece that I feel is missed here. But the flip side of that is some of those games, whether it's on Steam or on Xbox, they have a ton of demos out for some of those, and so it gives the player the chance to kind of go and explore and have a taste of that same experience.
Yeah, that was the one nice thing with on the Xbox side. At least they had those, like you mentioned, they had those 40 demos. But now, were those? And I didn't get to look at what they had out there. Were those mostly indie stuff, or was there some like bigger titles out there too
No, it's
for those
all indie
demos?
stuff.
Just all indie stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Game Logic, how about you? What did you think of the overall of this year's E3
Uh,
return of E3?
I think a necessary evil. I mean, as DBQ mentioned, it was a fire hose, right? Across certain days, it kind of wore me out and made me less attentive for the remaining days, for the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Um, so my hope would be, but I felt like a lot of this stuff was pent up and there hadn't been a venue for it, since last year, and I get it, but I'm hoping next year there's a little more peanut butter. Like, it doesn't need to be the scatter shot, right? The BB pellet thing that it was last year, but I think spreading it out maybe over kind of a month-ish and walking it up to like the week of E3 would be preferred. Like I mean, I mentioned earlier in one of the earlier shows that it kind of just degenerated to a point where I was like, I don't think it really matters that we need to like specify that this was part of E3 or this was part of Summerfest or whatever. But I think next year I would rather have Summerfest 1 week, right? Guerrilla Collective 1 week, Wholesome Games another week, and then kind of capstone with E3. I think would be more manageable, and then like DBQ said, right, would give things a little more time to breathe.
Yeah, I was kind of looking forward to the Wholesome Direct 2 talk, just because it's not it's a little bit more family friendly-ish, and just kind of not so it's wholesome, I guess, as the direct is called. But and I remember like watching that for the first time last year, and I was like, oh wow, like I wouldn't even paid attention to these games before, but since it was in a direct, and I was able to just sit down and watch all these games. Although this year it seemed like there was like it seemed like there was like probably at least double the games that they had last year, and they seemed to have a pretty good amount of games last year too. But it's just almost like too much that they were showing.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'll tag on to that is, look, I mentioned I personally feel like Microsoft always does a great show. It always speaks to my needs as a gamer. I've never been disappointed with it. I've always, when they have been head to head, I've always preferred the Microsoft show over the Sony show because I felt like the Sony show was a bunch of scissor reels, often without release dates. Often those release dates were into the next year, whereas the Microsoft shows were always like, coming this fall, coming this fall. Maybe you didn't like the game, people didn't like the game, whatever, but at least I knew it was coming. It hasn't been said. I haven't seen this echoed in a lot of volume out on Twitter, but as strong as I feel the show was this year, someone is eventually going to start pounding the table about the fact that that statement is in comparison to the fact that there wasn't a Sony show. And so I would have preferred that Microsoft would have knocked things out of the block in a direct head-to-head, mano y mano kind of approach with a Sony show, directly opposed to it. So gotta, take that moniker with a grain of salt, for however well Microsoft is perceived to have done. Because Sony could counterpunch in a month here, and then we won't hear the end of it until the end of the year.
Yeah, did they have a direct coming up? Have they announced anything?
They haven't scheduled anything. I mean,
recently?
the last time they did, they had that state of play with Horizon Forbidden West. But
Okay, yeah.
last year when they did theirs, it wasn't until July when they
Okay.
did the PlayStation stuff. So
Yeah, I thought it was later in the summer. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Cool. All right. If you guys don't have anything else that you want to mention or bring up, I think we will call it a night. Next week, we have our gamer experience show. A GX show, and honestly, we have no idea what is actually planned for next week. We just wanted to get through this whole week and get it done. But there's no mystery of what the formula is, so at least two of us will be here, and we'll let you know beforehand if anything else will be here as well to fill out the roster. I think I saw in the agenda that I think it was supposed to be all of us again at some point, or I mean for next week. But I guess we'll probably have to figure that out too. So
yeah, I think that's what we had scheduled, but I didn't make the assumption that we're going to stick with that, given that we stretched a bit further than we had planned to.
As a placeholder.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We'll figure it out, and we will be back most likely next week for the GX show. Gamer Logic, DBQ Hams, thank you for joining me tonight. It was a fun ride. It was kind of nice to have these two shows again, kind of like we used to do for E3. It was kind of fun. I believe Ravenclaw was it? Gamer Logic, thanks for stopping by and watching for a little bit. I don't know if you're still here or not. Then thank you everybody for watching the show whenever you're watching. Please be careful out there and be safe. Get out there, play those Game Pass, Nintendo, Sony, whatever you want to play. Play the games you like. And we will see you next time. Thanks a lot.